So it feels like every single Overwatch YouTuber made their mandatory how to get rank X video, and it seems like now it's my turn. Obviously I didn't want to just repeat what they said, so I checked some of them out and learned that a lot of them really oversimplify the matter. I'm talking legitimately one tip per video for each given how to get rank Diamond and Masters and so whatever. Well, I think that most people already figured out that ranking into Masters is not as easy as to just not get toxic, so I don't need to elaborate on that point. And as you might tell, I have quite the clickbaity title myself. No skill required for getting to Diamond? How's that supposed to work? Well, obviously I'm not just going to give you a single tip in this video, as it is a collection of tips that together make it possible, and the reason I'm making this video is because throughout Season 3, people could watch me get into Diamond live on stream. But how does that relate, Cliff? Your main account is in Masters, obviously getting into Diamond for you is easy. And you start pointing me to the plethora of challenge series where people deliberately derank into Bronze, who then stomp on people who are obviously worse than them until they get into the rank they actually belong into. That was quite the feat, buddy, and totally proves that anyone can get top 500. Well, since I'm mostly trying to not just tell you pure bullshit, here's what I bring to the table going into the challenge of reaching Diamond and not just touching it to immediately drop out again, but legitimately establishing myself in the Diamond rank. With being a Masters player, the one thing that gives me an edge versus someone who isn't would be my game sense and experience. For the most part, that just means that you have to be observant rather than tunnel vision on your role and to play the game for a while. Again, anyone who's watched me play my ult account on stream starting from the very leveling process will have seen that outside of the support bracket, I'm an average player at best when it comes to mechanical hero mastery. So if you consider your gameplay below average, that could be a problem when trying to follow this guide. But enough beating around the bush, let's talk about what you guys actually came here for, how to get into Diamond with no skill required. Well, as mentioned before, first off, your mechanical mastery at the game needs to be at least around average level. You need to be able to play most of the heroes in the game sufficiently, and I know that for recurring subscribers this might be a little weird because for people with only very limited amount of time per week to play video games, it is far more reasonable to become really good at a handful of heroes, but you're going to quickly learn that what makes sufficient gameplay is in fact not hero mastery. It's mostly game sense and positioning, something that should come with experience so long that you stay observant, so don't worry too much about it. And that wonderfully ties into the next point, being as observant as possible. What I did on my ult account was try to establish an MMR using mostly DPS and tank heroes, only picking up supports when direly needed. While yes, this is a douchey thing to do, the reason for me getting this account in the first place was so I could practice heroes I usually never touch in a competitive environment without making my teammates and masters suffer because I'm not there yet. The reason you want to make sure your MMR comes mostly from DPS and tank roles is because on lower rank, those roles usually have the biggest impact throughout the match. With that said, the heroes that got me into Diamond in Season 2 were Zenyatta and Ana, two heroes I was extremely comfortable with, so that comes to show that maining supports can also be a very valid way to rank up since you're becoming extremely confident on your main heroes. But back to the point, you see, when your team struggles with specific heroes in the enemy comp, you have way more choices in dealing with those particular problems as a DPS player. And on lower elo, it's usually not a matter of who's the better player, but more about who manages to counter the other and who makes less misplays. That means that you in your DPS or tank spot need to be as opportunistic as humanly possible. Pay close attention to what your enemies are running versus what you are running. The enemies don't have a hit scan hero, play Pharah and rain death upon them. The enemies don't have a Reinhardt, well then there's nothing stopping your Roadhog hooks. Are the enemies running solo support, you can destroy their only source of healing by playing a flanker. But also things that don't necessarily relate to countering the enemy comp. Did your team lose the first point on Temple of Anubis very quickly? Go Mei and stall for time. If you then make sure that you use your ultimates properly, you can single-handedly make a huge impact in holding that second point. Does your team engage but does not manage to get picks? If the enemies are focused on your team pushing, you might have a very easy time getting scatter arrow kills on unsuspecting supports as Hanzo. Now what's most important about all this, and that's a common theme throughout this video, is making the right decisions at the right time, and that stands in direct connection to being observant and analytic. There is a massive difference between a Hanzo player who keeps thinking, I can make this work, but never gets the picks he needs, and a Hanzo player who patiently approaches the battlefield, gets his picks, and if that does not help, swaps to a hero that assists otherwise. What's important for you to understand is that you always need to do the right thing, and that right thing isn't always the textbook play you see on YouTube. If you play Pharah and you know you played properly and got the picks you needed to justify your hero choice, but your team still is not winning, then you need to adapt to your team not doing the right thing, because expecting someone to play properly who doesn't even know they misplayed just is not gonna work. And I can't really give you an example here either, because that defies the purpose of trying to motivate you to always be observant of such things yourself. You see, I'd hate to plant more textbook examples into your head. On the flip side, doing the right thing is also not always rewarded with gold medals, and again for recurring subscribers that horse is already beaten to death, but you know what, there's psychology that goes behind gold medals, or really any sort of validation of gameplay performance that video games give us. It's not like I don't feel a certain level of satisfaction when I see 3 or 4 gold medals on my score, but what I learned while streaming my games was that I lost plenty of matches with multiple gold medals and won even more with just a few silvers at best. So what matters at the end of the day, losing with golds or winning with silvers? The other day on stream I played on Volskaya with a team that lost the first point very quickly, so I swapped to Mate to stall for time. I did not land anywhere near enough icicles to be able to call my gameplay groundbreaking, and I didn't have a lot of gold medals to wave around either, but my smart usage of ability cooldowns to stall for time and the near flawless timing of my ultimates allowed us to leave the match victorious. And another match I'm playing Hanzo on attack, all I could show off was a silver medal for damage, yet me killing any supports very early into our engagements and punishing tanks who were out of position with cheeky headshots allowed us to cleanly swipe through both points. With that said, could I have performed similarly or maybe even better with other heroes? Yes, I possibly could have, and you need to make that decision based on your own skill and level of confidence with the heroes in question. You have to be able to make the right pick for any given scenario to assist your team with whatever they're lacking. So I'm not sitting here claiming that we won those matches solely based on my performance, far from it. All I'm saying is that I smartly adapted my gameplay and provided exactly what my team needed when they needed it so that everyone could shine and win the battle. People have this impression that if you play a DPS hero, you need to get 5 kills per engagement or else you're bad. But honestly, 2 kills when it matters can make an infinitely bigger impact than 4 kills when it doesn't. And what else could I possibly be adding as a tip to this video? Well, this is where I cheated a little bit. The last point relates to attitude and team morale. In the beginning of the video, I mentioned that the things I bring to the table that others might not have are game sense and experience, with everything else I'm suggesting in this video not relating to top 500 levels of mechanical skill. But when it comes to attitude and team morale, I have the big advantage that I have this ult account, meaning it's easy for me to say just have fun and don't get angry, let alone toxic, because I'm playing on this account just to have fun, knowing that I still have my main account sitting in Masters. I don't have to care about rank in the slightest. I hope that you allow me to get away with this because honest to God, it's not impossible to stop caring about your rank even if you just have a single account. I know it's difficult for some because that number is always at the back of your head. At this point, for anyone who is really invested in Overwatch and finds themselves tilting over losses because they care about their rank too much, it might be really worth investing into an ult account. And I'm not talking about a smurf. Don't deliberately derank to shit on people who are worse than you. Don't intentionally throw games for the sake of trolling. Just play the game at the best of your capabilities. You don't need to go all out tryharding as you do on your main, but still, if you do that, the MMR system will do the rest to match you up with people of your skill level. And that is exactly what I did. I started off bringing an average level of mechanical skill to the game. Hell, a lot of people would even argue that I'm bad with a lot of heroes I pick, and hilariously enough, that's often even true. I'm a terrible Pharah player, but it's not like it's difficult to shoot rockets on people who don't have a hit scan hero to deal with you. I'm a disgustingly bad Mei player who keeps missing icicles and also messes up a lot of walls, but it's still enough to stall for time until my team is back. And Hanzo, well, it's not exactly difficult to land headshots on tanks with arrows owning hitboxes equivalent the size of 32 football fields. Honestly, if you just learn a few basic things like where to position yourself, to use your ultimates properly, whether that be with the intent of zoning to get free reign on the payload or more ticks on a capture point, or just to kill as many people as possible. I mean, they're called key to win for a reason. But I got on a little bit of a tangent here. When it comes to attitude and team morale, that does not just mean to not get mad over misplays and to not tilt over losses. It also means to try and be the lighthearted and reasonable person on voice chat. Don't waste your time engaging people who are being unnecessarily toxic, and try to keep the team morale as high as possible. And lastly for this video, know when to stop. How many times did you play ranked for a few hours straight and wish you had stopped earlier when you were still winning? Well, maybe it's time to get rid of that regret. As I said, whenever I play ranked on my old account, I also stream it, with maybe 2 or 3 late night games as an exception. And if you were attending my streams, you'd know I rarely ever stream more than 2 or 3 hours. Not overextending my game sessions means I don't expose myself too much to the possibility of losing games all day long. Odds are that you'll reach a point where playing more is just not gonna get you anywhere that's pleasant to be. You probably get more exhausted and more annoyed as your bad luck continues. Developing this kind of sense to stop before it gets bad like that, and also saying, maybe I want to stop on a high note, could go a long way if your SR really means a lot to you. I mean, you could also manage your accounts differently like this as well. If you really just want to play ranked all the time, you could have one account where you try it for a couple hours and see how it goes, and the other account where you just don't care if you keep dropping SR. I mean, you can play as long as you want. I mean, the worst thing that can happen on your ult account is that you will drop drop so low that you'll reach a rank where you'll stomp people anyway, and how bad could that be? Granted, usually the matchmaking system does not want to let that happen unless people deliberately throw their games. So let's quickly summarize what we have been talking about today. Getting into Diamond and staying there isn't really all that difficult if you already have reached an average skill level with most of the heroes in the game. If you get an ult account, make sure you play most of your games while leveling up as DPS and tank heroes to make sure your MMRs base off of your performance with those heroes. While not an entirely reliable system, that usually means that you will be paired up with people who main different roles than you. That also gives you a great portfolio for justifying picks on heroes that have a bigger impact on the game's outcome in lower elo. When playing, be ever aware of what is going on with both your and the enemy team. You'll need to be smart about picking the right heroes at the right time for each given encounter. But do not just swap around needlessly all the time. The most difficult part in this is being self-critical and being able to tell whether you can make a risky pick work or if you should swap to another hero. Do not focus your attention on gold medals, focus on winning the game. Don't feel discouraged only because you don't rack up 6-man ultimates all the time. In a lot of circumstances, getting just 2 kills on enemies that matter can be enough. So try to focus your attention on taking out key heroes in the enemy comp. That can be anything from a Roadhog who gets hooks for days, a Mercy that is hiding, an Ana that is out of position, or a Reinhardt that stops your teammates from unleashing their ultimates. In lower elo, play your heroes smartly and swapping when necessary usually matters far more than being an amazing shot. And lastly, stay calm at all times. Do not raise havoc over every little misplay, don't tilt over losses, and try to keep the team morale as high as possible. An ult account whose rank you genuinely don't care about can help a lot with that, though it's not necessary. Once you get yourself into Diamond, you should probably be looking into improving at a handful of heroes you find yourself doing better with than others. Because once you get into Masters territory, individual performance and hero mastery start to matter way more, and everything you learned while getting into Diamond will be pretty much mandatory. It is also worth noting that players in different divisions behave very differently. Masters and beyond usually have a very aggressive playstyle due to their experience and confidence. In lower ranks, the lack of such confidence is something you have to keep in mind for your own team, but can also take advantage of on the enemy team. It's not something I want to get too deep in detail about because it could vary strongly depending on which division we're talking about and probably also which region. But yeah, this is it. This is how I managed to get into and stay in Diamond, playing heroes I'm terrible with, and by that prove that there was indeed no skill required. But anyway, I hope that this video helped you guys out a bit. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you all next time. There you go. Want some space. Ow. There we go. I say that a lot. There we go. Finally killed a guy. There we go.